Welcome to the world headquarters of Euclid Ebenezer Training, broadcasting somewhere partial underground on this continent. Today I continue my series called Study, and the title of this teaching in this series is Greek 001. Well, whenever someone starts a beginning class somewhere, they say 101. Well, this is probably lower than that. So I'm going to just share a few books and a few things, what I've done. I've been fortunate over the years to hang out with some people who were professors and other things as long as they could tolerate me. And we kind of didn't hang out together. So, but I picked up a lot of things. When early 2000s, there was a church I was going to, and there was a gentleman there, and he was there for a few years, and he, through the course of years in his education and everything, he went over to, I think it was Oxford. He got 1 or 2 degrees from, and professor in New Testament Greek. And we'd have a small group over to his house, and we had some really fun times. And 2 things I appreciated about him. What I didn't is that when he was getting his group of guys at the church, he was kind of grooming for ministry. It kind of could feel myself getting pushed out. But what I did appreciate, some of the things, like go over to his house and I would see his library, and would look through his library and say, you know, and I'd memorize, okay, I'm going to buy that book. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to use it, like Theological Dictionary of the New Testament. Maybe one day I'll do that, but today is just the very starting. And I know, and I picked up some of these scholarly books. So, and there was a class in the 80s of a church that I got kicked out of. So, but the assistant pastor was a son. If the son was the pastor, things would have been, it would have been a different world. His son had 3 masters, and he wasn't that old. He was a walking brain. He was sweet, really sweet person. Go out and play basketball, and just a really, really sweet, neat human being. Brilliant. One of the most brilliant people I've ever heard of in my life. And he did a class, and a few of these books I'm going to be showing you, he did. It's just not a popular class. But if you'd like to step behind the veil, when people say, well, the Greek says that or this, I'm a beginner. I will always be a beginner, but I've bought tools to help me too. You could, you know, cut that wood with an axe, and you know, it could be a dull axe, and you may not get very far. Take a nice gas-powered chainsaw, cut through it. So I'm working towards that with the tools I have. But there's a place to start right now. And if you speak another language, if you speak at least 2 languages fluently, you'll toast me, because I'm not a language person. But I've bought tools and I've applied myself in different ways. I try to make it work. So, start with the beginning. This is Strong's Concordance. First came out in the late 1800s. James Strong. The modern ones I do not like. This is 1986. Aberdeen Strong's, and in the Concordance, the words of Jesus are in the red. But the older Strongs, I would do my best to get an old one, not a new one. It has, when you look at the word, it gives you the base of the stem of the word. It gives you a transliteration of it, and then it gives you a pronunciation. And the pronunciation may throw in some letters to help people. And this book is geared, and it basically has most of the words in the Strong's, in the King James Bible, but it gives a commentary. The problem with commentaries, why you need to buy as many as you can, is because sometimes they're not in depth on every word, and you might look up a word, man, there's not much there, but this is the best. I wouldn't be without it. This is the very big. You get this, you start looking things up. Okay, now I have a second one is the King James Bible. I am not King James only. I like it, most of my teachings it, but I always use, there's some really neat ones, the Amplified Bible. There's one called the Christian Bible from a small publishing group. And they're more paraphrases that sometimes I get stuck and that just doesn't make any sense. I just don't understand this. And then I read that, it's like, oh, Living Bible. I've heard a lot of my friends attack the Living Bible. I like it. It's a paraphrase, you know? And even there's one that really gets some really, you know, some groups of people really mad. It's a paraphrase. Another one, I won't mention his name. I don't want to get on their list, be mad at me. But so, but I stick with the King James because it's geared towards this. And I think there's an NIV Strong's, but I'm not sure. So these two things. So I look up a verse. This is how I started this thing. Write the verse on one side, write the location on the other side, and take a word and look up a word here in the Strong's, like a Greek word, and like the word pistis, which is the word faith, comes from the word pistis. And then write the commentary on that word. But what I'm doing is I'm training myself to understand that this is a translation, commentary, a copy of the original. And there are so many people in the church that don't have that in their brain. So practice doing that. It's a very simple act, and you should not be without it. And get other translations. There's NIV is popular, and I'm not a big NIV fan, but I have it, and I do use it from time to time. And then there's just, you know, the English Standard Version I use sometimes. So, another tool, and there's going to be two levels of this. This is very, you just got to start. This is the Englishman's Greek Concordance, George V. Wigram, 1979. But what it does is it lists the Greek word geared towards the Strong's numbering system. But what's interesting about it, you could look up the Strong's word number and see the English translation. And it's funny because sometimes they'll take one Greek word, but the translators will translate a different English word. And it helps to look and see, understand the different ways that Greek word can be used. So, this is my own Greek chart. I put some strange things on it that help me. And if you can memorize this, and you have these three books that I have, you're a big way into it. There's one more tool that I'm adding. This I learned about from this young man, the pastor, who was brilliant, and I really had a sweet spirit. This is those three, but what I'm adding, there's a gentleman who's a Christian historian, And he said a number of times, learn the Greek alphabet. And it's pretty simple. I have on this chart the capitals and the regular letters and the pronunciation of it and the number and the order of it. So I just made this up. I got a couple other ones, but this one's just kind of a go-to when I get stuck somewhere. Learn that. I don't even think you have to memorize it, but just have something handy. Familiarize yourself with it. Now I'm going to add something. Someone comes up to me and says, I want to try to attempt to learn the Greek New Testament. So these three books and the Greek alphabet. And maybe make it so you write it so you feel what the letter feels like, and try to practice writing it and make your own chart so that your eyes can see what you did, and there's this connection that's made. I have something here. In a way it's for more advanced people, but this will help you if you work on a car, even though you're not a mechanic. If I change a tire or change some plug plugs. There was one time a friend of mine was rebuilding his engine decades ago. I actually put in what was called points. I don't think cars have points nowadays. And this was a long time ago. And he was working, rebuilding his engine. He'd come over and, okay, when he'd help me a little bit, and I was doing some things that I'd never done since. But you get this sense of, okay, I may not be a mechanic, but I know that this does that, and you just develop something. And that's what these tools are for if you do nothing the rest of your life. And I know we live in a church that is devotional, not doctrinal. And that's not everywhere, but that's a lot of places. And we've gone from wearing suits to churches and super casual and, loud music and strobe lights and smoke machines and liturgy. And I'm not saying good or bad, but what I am saying, devotional is not bad. But you need to do doctrinal too, and that's what these tools intend you to do. This is probably my most important book, The Interlinear Greek New Testament by J.P. Green Sr. It has the King James Bible. It uses the Strong's numbering system. It has a literal translation of the New Testament, J.P. Green Sr. A gentleman in Phoenix, Arizona said that this is the best translation ever. That was his opinion, one person's opinion. I'm saying that because I like the translation. So it's all here. I have the Greek word. I have the English translation there. And then below it, the Strong's number on top. I was taking it to church, and when the preacher would use verses, I would just read it in the Greek and see the English word there too, both at the same time. But I stopped doing it because it's falling apart until I could find somebody to rebind this thing. I don't want to mess it up. So, these 4 books in that chart, you have that. You can spend the rest of your life in those books and just get kind of a handle on, studying the Scriptures and the New Testament. And so, I'm going to give you a few more. And there's one more to add to this 5 books in the chart. Okay, so there's 4 books I've showed you. Vines. The gentleman, the Vines, what was the first name? Expanded New Testament, Expository Dictionary of New Testament Words. It's geared towards the Strong's Concordance, and it gives you the noun, the verb, and all these books are geared for the English user, not someone who's proficient in Greek. But if you use these tools, I think you will be. So we got the Strong's, King James Bible, Vine's, expository commentary, new dictionary on on Greek words, the Wigram Greek Englishman's Greek Concordance, and J.P. Green's Greek English Interlinear. Now I'm going to give you 4 for more advanced studies, but again, it's geared for the English user. And if you're somebody who takes, like a few people I've known over the years, who brings their Greek New Testament to church, no commentary or nothing, you can shut this thing off. But if you're not that, this is called Practical Word Studies in the New Testament, put out by publishers of the Preacher's Outline and Sermon Bible. Got this in the late 90s. This is more devotional than technical, but there's some technical things in it. My only beef with it is, you know, maybe 50% of the time it'll have the word I'm looking for, but it breaks it down all nicely for you. And but that's for more advanced studies. Get these other books first, and that one. But if you see this somewhere, this book right here, snag it. It's a 2-volume set. And so there's another one, Kenneth S. West, Word Studies, and I don't have all the volumes. I have most of them, and he breaks it down, then gives his translation, and he has a Greek New Testament, or not a Greek New Testament, but a paraphrase that he put out. And so, and then he gives you the verse and a commentary on it. And again, this is for someone who doesn't know Greek, but even if you know Greek, it's very helpful. There's 2 more here. And they're not for the I'm going to say that all these for beginners, but I would start with those other ones. Kind of get the handle on things and then go a little bit deeper. Marvin R. Vincent, Word Studies in the New Testament. Again, for someone, commentary on the Greek word. I have some more advanced Greek studies, but I'll do that in another one. So Vincent, Word Studies in the New Testament. And then probably my favorite, if I was invited to go to Mars to be a chaplain, a missionary, this set would go with me. And if I ever do start traveling, preaching, I might just take A.T. Robertson's 6-volume set. It's concise, it's technical, but it's not too technical for the average person. If you didn't know Greek, you could look things up. This is my go-to all the time. So, YouTube and the world we live in today, there's some really neat things about it. And one of them is you can look up some really amazing things on YouTube. One time I was looking up, dunking a basketball. Who was the oldest person to train and dunk a basketball? And there's kind of some debate there. And it was funny, some of the videos came out, and I thought the person who I have an accountability thing with, who when I look something up, it goes to their phone. So I was wondering if they thought, you crazy old man, what are you doing? Are you trying to dunk a basketball? But there's so many things to learn, and maybe you could substitute some of this for things online to navigate. I don't know. But so these things here, I just encourage you to to have a desire to go. There was a gentleman on the radio who's talking about a book, The Proximity Principle, and I haven't read it or read a review of the book, but to me is what like I've told you before, but what I've done, I've tried to hang out with people who were proficient in the Greek language, in the Greek New Testament, and I've picked up certain things. And if you watch my teachings on my 2 YouTube channels, you'll see that I've gotten there. I've been able to work in the Greek New Testament. If if I didn't have these tools, now I wouldn't be able to just take a Greek New Testament. I'm actually doing one now, doesn't have verses or chapters in it, but if you do a Greek New Testament without it has the verses, but you don't it doesn't have the English to help with that, I probably couldn't use it. So I'm not a language person, but I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot. I've gone a long way by what you call reverse engineering. The story, that Area 51 got a UFO, and like Independence Day, they reverse engineered it, and that's kind of what I'm doing. If you speak fluently, I said this earlier, 1 or 2 languages, you'll do this. You'll smoke me in no time. But it has to be a desire. And Lord, I just pray for everyone who views this for a revelation and desire to seek to study the Greek New Testament and to make attempts to make decisions in their life how they can begin to deepen themselves by going further. In Jesus' name. Bible reading programs are good, but we only have so much time, so much energy, and things just seem to be more and more stressful. And so we have to make decisions on how we spend our time. And for me, I've decided that I want to learn more with some of the Christian history that we have. And so, well, signing off from somewhere partially underground. I don't know if this thing's going to shut off. I just